January 2021. My name is Kwame Owusu. So I welcome you to Good Morning Africa. I welcome you to the Newspaper Review segment. I welcome you to your most authoritative show here on the continent of Africa. It is Pan-African Television, and we're streaming across 48 African countries and also some parts of Europe. Welcome again. Now, I'm super excited to come your way today because there are so many issues that we need to talk about. There are so many issues that have come up. There are so many issues that require us to deliberate about and perhaps advise ourselves and educate ourselves in respect of all of these issues that I'm going to be talking about this morning on the show. Let me say a special good morning to all our cherished viewers who are watching us from across the length and breadth of this country, particularly those of us who are watching us from the northern belt of this nation, the southern, the eastern, and the western belt. We say thank you very much for always choosing Pan-African Television. And also, I'd like to say a very special good morning going out to all our African viewers as well. Those of you who are watching us from Nigeria, Liberia, Sierra Leone, Togo, Burkina Faso, Gambia, you know, some parts of East Africa, special good morning. In fact, some part of Central Africa as well. A special good morning to you, wherever it is that you're doing the watching from. And also to our viewers on Facebook and YouTube. Thank you very much for choosing Pan-African Television this morning. You're the reason why we're climbing so fast. You're the reason why we continue to deliver good and quality programming here on Pan-African Television. And, you know, over the weekend, I was privileged to sit with a very wise man who gave me some wise counsel. And he taught me so many things over the weekend, even though we spent we spent a very little time together. But after the meeting, I was able to take with me a lot of things that obviously would help, you know, shape me up and also will help inform me about how to discuss issues here on the morning show. I'm going to be sharing with you a little bit of the things that he spoke to me about when I visited his home. He gave me some nice fufu. Yeah, I enjoyed some nice fufu and some, you know, other things, you know, that I'm not going to mention here on the show. No, don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. Soprano. Well, Soprano has announced himself already, so I'm not going to introduce Soprano. Well, the Soprano Support Sylvester is with the CPP, a communications person for the CPP, and he's here seated to represent his party. I'm sure he's going to do precisely that. Oh, where is it? I'm just looking for the quote so that I read it out for our viewers. But where is it? Oh, okay. All right. So the wise man told me over the weekend when I visited his home that there cannot be a lasting glory without a bitter struggle. There cannot be a lasting glory without a bitter struggle. So it means whatever it is that you're doing, you need to make sure that you struggle, you go through it, you learn the ropes, and the glory will be lasting. Otherwise, you know, it will just be a very intermittent glory, or even short glory. You're not going to really experience the full length of the glory that you know, you're supposed to get. So there can't be a lasting glory if the struggle is not bitter. All right, so the struggle must always be bitter, so that if you lose an election and you're not happy about it, you go to court. You know, the struggle has to be bitter. So when you come out victorious, then you get excited. That's how I think it's supposed to be. Right. This morning, we're going to be touching on an African story here on the show. 9 African nations to lose UN voting rights. Daily Graphic reported this one. Ghana mourns nation pays last respect to Rawlings. Let's focus on AFTA implementation challenges. Daily Graphic reported this one. COVID-19 death toll rises as GMA calls for restrictions on public gatherings. This is on the front page of the Inside newspaper. The AFTA story, I picked the AFTA story because AFTA, African Continental Free Trade Area. I picked this story because it appears that we've not really delved deeper into the issues surrounding its implementation and whether or not it's going to be successful in Africa, right? So it's more like how the EU operates. So free movement of goods, free movement of people, free movement of services, free movement of people. So I'm sure pretty much that the African Continental Free Trade Area is also, you know, going on that trajectory, you know, where we're going to be having free trade, free movement of people, you know, and price uniformity and things like that. But what are the ramifications? What are the latent issues, that characterizes the implementation of this particular project, and whether or not countries that are participants in this process will fully benefit from the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area. It's very important that we touch on that. Soprano Sapon Sylvester, good morning again. Good morning, we have to touch on the African story first of all.
Yes, sir.
Unfortunately, the other panelists are not here, but I can't keep you, the viewers, waiting, so we need to start. United Nations Chief Antonio has said 9 African nations and Iran should lose their voting rights as required under the UN Charter after defaulting on payment of their dues to the United Nations operating budget. Secretary General Antonio listed the minimum amount that the 10 countries need to pay to have their voting rights restored in a letter to the General Assembly, President Volkan Bozkır. Iran topped the list and needs to pay $16,251,298, followed by Somalia, which must pay $1,443,640. Comoros, $871,632. Sao Tome and Principe, $829,888. Libya, $705,391. Congo, $90,844. Zimbabwe, $81,770. Central African Republic, $29,395. South Sudan, $22,804. Niger, $6,733. Are the remaining countries. Now, the UN Charter gives the 193-member General Assembly the authority to decide that a failure to pay is due to conditions beyond the control of the member. And in that case, a country can't continue to vote. The Republic of Congo was also sanctioned. Brazzaville must pay $90,844 to recover its right to vote. South Sudan, $22,804. Zimbabwe, $81,770. However, Comoros, Sao Tome and Principe, and Somalia are on probation. The annual operating budget of the UN is about $3.2 billion. The separate budget for peace operations is about $6.5 billion. Interesting, scary figures here. And Soprano, yes, I'm wondering, all these monies that are going to be paid to the UN General Assembly, what is the purpose?
Kwame, good morning and thank you.
And I'm getting very upset actually.
Yes.
Voting rights, and then what happens? When they've stolen mineral resources from Congo, for instance, stolen everything from Congo, to the extent that even in their movies they say it. Yesterday we were watching a movie, myself and Nama. The movie was serious. It's called Lupin. Then one rich white woman said, "Oh, we were in the Congo. They were sitting on money. They didn't know its worth, so we helped ourselves." And it's just in a series, but that is a scintilla, right, of the general thinking of these white folks.
Kwame, great.
It's very upsetting. So this Ghana pays this much to them.
Something of that, of that nature, I imagine.
Oh, dear Lord.
Something of that nature. Kwame, and so here you are talking about the movie and people from the West coming to help themselves to Africa's resources, Congo under the circumstances. Kwame, as for Congo, their story, I don't know what they've done, that country, that they are suffering like that. As you know, it's the wealthiest part of Africa, and it has become a curse.
In the world.
In the world, you could say. And it's become, they possess such extraordinary rare earths that are in high demand. The Congo story is a sad story. President Kwame Nkrumah tried to resolve it. As you know, that is where our excellent Honorable Kojo Chikata, established his bona fides. It is a theater that has been, in operation for a long time now. Continues to be, remain in dire straits. There's a United Nations mission there, MONUSCO or something, has been there for ages. And there doesn't seem to be a settlement in sight, even with the election of President Tshisekedi. But I digress. Kwame, the issue is that here is a situation where we have 9 African countries to lose their voting rights at the UN because they cannot afford or they've not paid their dues. So I guess it's a sort of what I'll call a poll tax. A poll tax, as in, before independence in some African countries, and then in the United States, before the Civil Rights Act of 1965, which was spearheaded by Martin Luther King Jr. and signed into law by the extraordinary Lyndon B. Johnson, who was president at the time, after JFK was assassinated. And you see that black people were, you were demanded to be paying tax or be, something of that nature before you could vote. Okay, and it really negated, it was a form of voter suppression. You understand? Because it inadvertently sort of impacted minorities, especially African Americans the most. You understand? So we have a situation whereby today, Mr. Antonio Guterres, that's the gentleman, if I'm not mistaken, at the United Nations, is insisting that Somalia, the Comoros Islands, Libya, Congo, Zimbabwe, Central African Republic, South Sudan, and Niger pay a certain poll tax before they can participate in the activities of the United Nations. In other words, if they don't pay, they will be affected by the United Nations activities, but they will not be able to contribute to decision making. I think it's a terrible precedent being pushed by the United Nations Secretary General, and he should step back. You understand? Because when you take a look at the countries that have been, listed anyway, I want to focus on the African countries first. Somalia, $1.4 million. They should be forgiven that debt. After the disaster that has been occurring in Somalia, okay, with the Al-Shabaab menace and you remember there's this movie I watched, Black Hawk Down. You understand? After the skirmishes of the United States in Somalia, etc., and the conditions in Somalia, it is very sad to hear the United Nations Secretary General talking about 1.4 million, for which reason the entire Somali people are going to be shut down, the voice of the Somali people. Comoros Islands, 871. Libya, 705,000. And Mr. Honorable Guterres says Libya should be suspended. I'm ashamed for the United Nations Secretary General. Is he aware of what occurred in Libya when President Obama was in power, along with his best friend, President Sarkozy of France, and what they have done to the Libyan Republic and the Libyan people under the supervision of the United Nations, even though Russia was objecting? You understand? The United Nations sat down and watched the destruction by President Barack Obama and his friend, his best friend, Mr. Sarkozy, Monsieur Sarkozy, who is under criminal investigation. And Mr. Obama and Sarkozy went to destroy Libya. And now the United Nations is sitting here saying they want $705,000. It is pathetic. It is almost criminal. Because when His Excellency, Honorable Muammar Gaddafi, was in power, 705,000 is peanut money for Honorable Muammar Gaddafi. And the United Nations, Mr. Guterres and his friends, they sat there and watched the evisceration of the Libyan Republic, the destruction of that country by Mr. Sarkozy and Mr. Obama. And now today he says Libya should come and pay 705,000. The Libyan people, they don't have any money for United Nations. If they don't want, they can do whatever they want. What should they destroy the country under the supervision of the United Nations. Mr. Guterres has been a diplomat for a long time. We've never heard him talk against the situation in Libya. And now he wants 700. You see, because if Libya was there and Gaddafi was in power, he could have financed the entire budget just like that. I hope the Libyan people never pay that 705. As for Congo, they shouldn't tell us about Congo. And then Zimbabwe.
The breadbasket of Africa.
You understand? 81,000 dollars. So they are going to suspend them. Kwame, take note that the United Nations sat down and watched Prime Minister Tony Blair, who lied to the United Nations, the fibs he told, and disgraced the entire United Kingdom. And Honorable Mr. Tony Blair, imposed a certain extraordinary hardship. He pushed for it, and the United Nations placed an embargo, and the European Union placed an embargo on Zimbabwe, destroying the Zimbabwean economy. So remember, Kwame, it is not that Robert Mugabe, blessed is his name, Honorable Gabriel, His Excellency, he was not the one who destroyed the Zimbabwe economy. It was London, US, the European Union, because of their hatred for Robert Mugabe, because he was standing up for the rights of the indigenous African people who were originally robbed of their land by white settlers. You understand? And Zimbabwe, Honorable Robert Mugabe stood up for them, and they placed sanctions on the entire Zimbabwean people, and now they cannot even pay 8 to 1,000 cedis, and Mr. Guterres is saying what? Nobody in Zimbabwe should go and pay anything. You understand? Central African Republic. How can you say Central African Republic, considering their current dire straits, should come and pay 29,000? This 29,000 cedis, Mr. Guterres, $29,000. Mr. Guterres should just forgive it or pay it for them, because you see, Central African Republic is in dire straits. I also want to use the opportunity to appeal to His Excellency, the President of Russia, Honorable Vladimir Putin, to just pay the $29,000 for Central African Republic. Mr. Putin is doing a fantastic job in Central African Republic, and we say God bless President Putin and the Russian people for showing up for the Central African Republic people. Now, Russia is full of billionaires, oil billionaires. We want one of the oil billionaires in Russia to pay for $29,000.
My point is this. My point is this. So yes, if they lose their voting rights, so what?
That's the so what?
Because the truth is that even with the voting rights, nothing is happening. Even with the voting rights, nothing is happening.
Yes.
If they lose it, what happens?
Kwame, so you see,
I know that there are some, attendant challenges that may follow same, right? But the truth is that even with the voting right, nothing really is happening.
In any case, Kwame, I think President Trump also defaulted on the United Nations payment.
Absolutely.
And because he had issues with them. Are they going to, suspend the US? That's my point. Now, talking of
unbelievable. All these countries are, apart from Iran, African.
And even Iran, look at the suffering. Listen, Kwame, Iran is going through a certain extraordinary pain imposed on it, especially by President Trump's government, administration, the United States. Okay, simply because they insist on defending their right to, have nuclear science, to participate in it. Now, you may think that, you see, it's like what America's treatment, President Trump's treatment of Iran is like saying you have a cutlass in your house. You might use the cutlass to cut somebody. If you don't give up the cutlass, then we will not let you survive. You understand? But the Iranians are using the cutlass or the machete to do their farm. You see, so you cannot just hold somebody down like that because of a dual issue like that. But more importantly for me, and I'll say this, and you see, the United Nations, for a long time, especially African countries have been calling for reform of the United Nations, especially at the Security Council. President Robert Mugabe, of blessed memory, who is in heaven right now, used to talk about this thing a lot. You understand? So the United Nations must have some, kind of reform. African countries or Africa must be represented on the United Nations Security Council in some fashion. You understand? Otherwise, I would call on all 54 African countries to temporarily boycott the United Nations, especially if they insist that these 9 African countries should pay these money. That would have been
very fantastic, but I'm not sure they're going to do that, because then it would have sent a strong message, to the international community that we are united now. We have one front, and therefore we're going to stand up for our right and do what is right. But I'm not sure we're going to get there.
I don't think we have
particularly because we always go there cap in hand.
Yes.
We're always at their beck and call, and so I don't know how we're going to be able to surmount this particular challenge.
Kwame, as usual, I expect that African countries will go groveling to the UN. Maybe we'll beg them to say, oh, please, white people, we beg you, don't sack us, and stuff like that. You understand? But I'd like to use the opportunity to let Mr. Guterres and the United Nations and the rest of the world know that there is a new African on the horizon. And we will not be tolerating this nonsense in the future, in the near future. And we would seek to be setting up United Nations organizations or independent international organizations that serve our purposes. The United Nations is increasingly becoming obsolete. Okay, and that's why other people have been saying that it needs massive reform. Okay, the organization, the United Nations, is a product of the Bretton Woods institution, the world order created after the Second World War, which extraordinarily was skewed to benefit Western nations, etc. You understand? So the United Nations itself is in dire need of reform. And if they don't look sharp, very soon probably some of us in Africa and some of the other nations that are constantly oppressed, such as Iran, Libya, and other such nations, China, etc., Russia, etc., we might just break away and form our own United Nations.
You know what baffles me? If you look at the countries so listed here, we have Iran.
Yes.
That's in crisis. We have Congo. That's still in crisis. Central African Republic. In crisis. Niger.
Crisis.
Sudan.
Crisis.
Now, if you read the core functions of EU.
Yes.
UN. The main function of the United Nations is to preserve international peace and security.
And
this is what they are paying for. They are paying for international peace and security.
Or its advocacy in their areas.
But I'm surprised though.
All these are conflict zones.
Absolutely.
In one form or the other.
In one form or the other. So on what basis are they saying that people must pay because?
Did you notice that Niger?
Absolutely.
Niger owns 6,000.
Absolutely.
And Mr. Guterres is not ashamed to come and ask the Republic of Niger to come and pay 6,000. And because of that, he's disgracing all Niger that he owes 6,000 cedis. Dr. Nawani, please, I want to appeal to you to pay the $6,000 for Niger.
I think that
please, just pay for them.
I think that the UN only plays to the gallery of the Americas and the Britain.
That's why it needs reform, Kwame.
Because the truth of the matter is that all of these things listed here does not directly benefit the African people. Unfortunately, because we're talking about international peace and security, and when you Google, that's the foremost thing that you see. The first thing that appears on the platform is ensuring international peace and security. And for me, I mean, Congo is destabilized.
It has been destabilized ever since
by reason of the deliberate involvement of the Western world.
Because a destabilized and unstable Congo benefits some of their clandestine activities.
Absolutely.
You understand?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I don't understand why. Well, if I had my way, I would say that they shouldn't even pay. In fact, all African countries should not even pay. Let's see if they can finance.
Sure.
Because you see, what you need to understand is that all the monies that are used for some of these projects come from Africa.
Oh, Kwame.
All of these monies.
You see,
I mean, in my estimation, I think that they should just ignore it.
Kwame, and if
we can get all the 54 African countries to ignore, that would be very exciting for me.
That solidarity would be fantastic. Since President Kwame Nkrumah, we've now had that African leader that has got a gravitas to, sort of push the African case properly. Now, when you take a look at, say, President Nelson Mandela, he was really in the pocket of the West. You understand? I keep on saying that.
No, he was a puppet.
Yeah, you cannot compare Nelson Mandela to Robert Mugabe ever. Because if the object of the Southern African liberation struggle was the return of the land back to its rightful owners, then Robert Mugabe was successful and Nelson Mandela was a failure. He even gave away the nuclear weapons. You understand? So you cannot compare someone like Nelson Mandela to the leadership that we got from President Kwame Nkrumah and the leadership that we got from President Robert Mugabe, even under severe sanctions. That's why I say God bless Robert Gabriel Mugabe. You understand?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Nawani just joined us. Doc, I don't know if I should punish you for for not appearing on time, but I wouldn't do that. I'll just give you a few minutes to respond to this issue. And then the first African story. Right, so no, I mean, we're talking about the fact that the United Nations is saying that some African countries are going to lose their voting rights for failing to pay for, for failing to pay their contribution. They listed the African countries and the amount that they owe to the UN. And of course, Soprano indicated that left to him alone, it's not imperative for any African country to pay. Now, I also made the point that we are not even benefiting manifestly from all these monies that we've paid to the UN, particularly when they indicate that their primus inter pares in terms of their operation is international peace and security. Wherefore, all the countries that they've mentioned is in crisis. So I mean that's precisely what we've been touching on. If you can also briefly touch on that, and then we can look at the other issues.
Then the countries are
Congo, Sao Tome and Principe, Niger, South Sudan. Where are the other ones? South Sudan, Iran, Libya, Zimbabwe, Central African Republic. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Somalia and all of those other countries.
Okay, thank you, Kwame. First, I want to say good morning to the viewers of Pan-African Television, and say good morning to my constituents in Nabdam. And looking at the list of countries,
Where's the tea?
looking at the list of countries that has not paid, it is obvious that most of these countries have got some problems. If you compare, countries like Ghana, etc., we have paid, yes. We're a stable democracy. We're a country that is practically everything is working on our behalf. Yes. But looking at countries like Niger, South Sudan, Zimbabwe, Libya, it comes to mind that these are the countries that are struggling to even establish their nationhood. Sao Tome, etc. Most of these countries are struggling to have their nation to have them working as a nation. That is, if you look at the way they are at the moment. Take Zimbabwe for instance, and you know that everything is not working for them. Their healthcare system is in shambles. Their economy is not doing very well, and all this goes to express in their obligations to international bodies such as the UN. And so it is quite easy to explain why they cannot pay, even though looking at the figures, some of them appear to be not that big and that they could have settled it. But remember that their international obligations are many. Some to OAU, the African Union, some to their regional bodies, etc. So if they are not able to pay everything, it is simply normal. But to punish them by revoking their voting right is what we should protest against, because when your right to vote is taken away from you, it's just like your membership have been taken away from you, and so it's just like you have been expelled from that body, and that is what we as a group have to protest. Indeed, we as the African group have to let them understand that some of these problems that are there are beyond that particular country getting the internal solutions. Some of them need external assistance from an organization such as the UN. And let us now try to let the UN understand that probably they are not playing their role very well in some of these countries. They are not doing very well. The UN is not playing its role very well. The UN as an organization that is supposed to interface with African Union, for example, or interface with ECOWAS, for example, to get solutions to some of the problems in this country, is not taking place. They leave some of these problems to get beyond the internal control mechanisms, and instead of stepping in at the right time to stop some of the problems in this country, they lead them, and we have a situation where it gets to that extent that practically the country is only exists by name. If you take a country like Libya, there were times that the rebel group was even stronger than the so-called central government. We know it. And we know that, yes, the rebel group controlled much more resources. The rebel group was much more organized than the central government. And you are asking the central government to look for money to pay its external obligations. That cannot work. And that cannot be the case. So let us get the UN to understand that, no, they are owing. Let's sit down and talk about the debts, but don't take, since we understand why they are owing, because they all have some characteristics, which I believe that my good friend has already spoken about it. That is, if you take Congo, you know what is happening there. Central African Republic, we know what is happening there. You know, internal insecurity, fighting, change of government, an unstable government. Who is to pay if there's an unstable government? Who is to pay? So let us just look at South Sudan, Libya. All these countries have those characteristics. And so we should not we should not expel them gently. I'm saying gently because they've not stated that they are expelling them, but that they are taking away their voting right. That is equivalent to being expelled from the organization. Yeah. So let us look at that aspect very well, sit down with with the UN, and try to see what we can do. Indeed, I wouldn't. I would have liked that the UN take a decision on them, like canceling this debt. Cancel this debt. I believe the UN can still run without these countries paying their debts. And to some of them, like Iran, I don't think that the problem with Iran is that they cannot pay, but it's a form of protest. Iran own should be a form of protest that, look, these sanctions, etc., that the European Union, the United States have put on us, it's not fair. At all. It's not fair. And we're losing a lot of income. And if we're losing a lot of income, one of the areas that we cannot continue to pay is the UN dues. And so the UN itself should sit down, look at their case very well, in the absence of, with Donald Trump leaving, we can look at it again and think whether it is fair for us to continue to put all these sanctions on Iran. After Obama started something with them, it appears there was some progress that was made, only for us to lose that tempo and retract back to the olden days where those countries will just sit down and put on sanctions against countries simply because of suspicion that they will use their nuclear technology to produce weapons of mass destruction.
Right.
Let us be aware that in our own history, once upon a time, we made a mistake and went for a war in Iraq. Yes, because we suspected that they were manufacturing weapons of mass destruction, and it ended up being that it was not true. So let us look at all these things and make sure that some of these countries will look at, even if you can just cancel their debt, I will call that this debt should be cancelled.
All right.
Yes, or that their payments should be withheld until further notice.
Thank you very much, Dr. Awani. Well, if you just joined us, you're watching the Newspaper Review segment on Pan-African Television. Let me encourage all of you to share with us what your thoughts are via WhatsApp number, which is 0260846539. Alternatively, you can go onto our Facebook page, check us out on Facebook, and leave your comments underneath the live stream. I will try to read them out here for you. And also, you can send me your messages via my Twitter handle, which is Kwame Owusu Danso. My Instagram, Kwame Owusu Danso, and my Facebook is Kwame Owusu Danso. Now, let's come back to Ghana and discuss some other very important issues. So, Pranav, I'm starting with you again.
Yes, sir.
The implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area. Yes, it started on the 1st of January. Of course, conversations began quite earlier. And finally, in January, this year, the agreement began.
Yeah, it came in effect.
Absolutely. Now, the expectation is for small, medium enterprises, or SMEs as we like to call them, to thrive. Essentially removing all trade barriers, etc., to ensure that we are able to do business with other African countries with ease. Largely, it is going to, if we are able to handle it well, create bigger economies.
Sure.
Because then we are going to internally trade amongst ourselves, and therefore it will minimize the importation of foreign products, foreign as in external products, products that are not within the confines of Africa. And so small businesses are going to make a lot of money. And we also do know that small businesses contribute to about 80% of employment for the African continent, and about 50% or so for the gross domestic product, etc. So I mean they play very significant roles in our economies. Now, on the face of it, it looks very, very lucrative. But given the kind of economies that we run on the continent, economies which is rooted or grounded in agrarian, style of economy, type of economy, wherefore the only involvement is, for instance, in agriculture, etc. Even in agriculture, it's just some subsistence. Well, few of them, going into bigger productions, etc. We are largely not a productive, in terms of productivity, in terms of production. I mean, we're not a production-based economy, and so we're going to find it very difficult in ensuring that we bring ourselves up to speed in respect of production, etc. Of some commodities, which commodities now would be able to generate some revenues for the continent. Now, how are we going to be able to deal with the nuances that will arise from this implementation? Nuances in respect of, for instance, intellectual property, patenting, because once the system is opened, ideas may well easily be stolen. People can, and of course also because laws are not really operating properly on this side of the world. Generally, we're going to be faced with that challenge as well. So I just want us to broadly look at it, look at the advantages that it presents, look at the disadvantages that it presents, and the way forward for the continent of Africa.
Kwame, thank you for the opportunity to have a conversation, about Africa, to further the conversation about the opportunities we Africans are creating for ourselves, this time by ourselves. I'm really just so happy as a member of the glorious Convention People's Party that one cardinal aspiration of our founder and the leader, also the first leader of Ghana, President Kwame Nkrumah, this free African free trade area is one of the visions. It's a brainchild of President Kwame Nkrumah and the founders, of the African Union, including Emperor Haile Selassie and co. You understand? Kwame, and whilst we are still talking about Africa, please allow me just in a sentence to, offer my respect and glee and happiness to President Akufo-Addo, because President Akufo-Addo, according to the Ghanaian Observer today, is rallying ECOWAS leaders against terrorist activities in the sub-region. I'm very happy because, Kwame, it means he's been listening to Pan-African TV and taking our advice that we have been giving him seriously. And because of that, we say God bless President Akufo-Addo and may he succeed in the, tamping down the terrorist activities in the sub-region, especially what is happening in Nigeria before they come to Ghana. Kwame, with the African Free Trade Area, I just wanted to begin by taking a historical look. You understand? This, trading amongst Africans was the norm. Indeed, when I was in secondary school, I read in the history books that Asantehene, the Asantehene, Nana Se Ajiman Prempe, was a serious Pan-Africanist, intra-African trader. He was a business person, and he used to travel as far as Maiduguri in Nigeria, where Boko Haram has taken over, defeating the Nigerian army or something, but he used to go to Maiduguri to do business. You see, and this has been the story. Kwame, my grandfather was a goldsmith. He used to go to Libya to go and, do work, Liberia, to go and do work. So this issue of Africans going to all parts of the continent to transact business has been the norm, was the norm until colonialism, when, our ancestors were, defeated by Western powers and they took over our countries, our territories. For instance, as you know, in Ghana, the British, were keeping their colonial occupation forces. The British colonial occupation forces used to be in Ghana. People call them colonial masters, but the reality is that they were occupation forces. You understand? And, they put up these borders that we see today, the political map. When you look at it, those artificial borders did not exist in a historical Africa. Because as President Muammar Gaddafi said when he came to Ghana by road in the 90s, if I'm not mistaken, he said that when he was coming, what he saw was the people are the same. They were eating the same type of foods, living the same way. So we Africans are actually one people divided by colonialism. So now that we have the opportunity to come back together, it is really fantastic. Kwame, you talked about the fact that small businesses are going to be driving this new policy, this new opportunity for an opportunity to reintegrate Africa from the grassroots, because this African Free Trade Area is going to integrate Africa in a way that will make the unity of Africa really much more easier. This Free African Trade Area, African Free Trade Area, is going to facilitate interaction amongst Africans. It will lead to marriages. Ghanaians will go and marry from Kenya. Kenyans will marry from Niger. Nigerians will marry from South Africa. And it will foster integration of Africa. But it will be driven by the small business people. However, we have a challenge with our small business people in Africa. And I want to use the Ghanaian situation as an example. So in his January 2005 sessional address to Parliament, President J.A. Kufuor, and Kwame, I'm reading this from the book Third World to First World by One Touch. The principal author is Robert Wood, Engineer Robert Wood, Ghana's crusading engineer. Engineer Wood, greetings to you this morning. Engineer Wood is one of the best things that ever happened to Ghana, and some of us are really just so glad that we ever got to associate with him. But in the book, Engineer Wood led us, we captured the statement by President Kufuor in his 2005 sessional address to Parliament. And President J.A. Kufuor, he described the private sector as a group. This is the President of Ghana in 2005 speaking. President J.A. Kufuor, he described the private sector as a group of individuals and enterprises that are unable to keep pace with modernity. Further, President Kufuor elaborated, the sector encompasses a host of activities including agric, commerce, manufacturing, infrastructure, and entertainment. Okay, generally, we see that in a speech, Kwame, this is quite important. At a presentation on the topic, Policy Dialogue on Poverty Reduction and Wealth Creation in the Informal Sector, on Tuesday, March the 1st, 2005, at Cresta Royal Hotel, Accra, the Director General of the Private Enterprises Foundation of Ghana said this. He said the informal sector is an unstructured, high-risk, chaotic system. Success in the sector is highly selective and may be due to predictable or may not be due to predictable or verifiable factors. Because of the underlying challenge of survival, informal sector operators do not respect, follow, or apply rules and regulations consistently. And then finally, the presentation showed the informal sector has the following characteristics. Low educational attainment, about 87% have only primary or no formal education at all. Unregistered businesses, membership in trade, or business associations was under 25%. And then most players have other occupations, that's 80%, and lack commitment to their primary trade or vocation. And a large majority earn very low incomes. For the most part, Kwame, most of the people in the private sector and this sector, the informal sector, are our mothers and wives and sisters, who, because the leadership of Ghana over the past several decades have been so inept in producing jobs for the people, the informal sector is what I described. Your mother or your grandmother or your wife selling tomatoes on the table in front of your house. This is the informal sector we have in Ghana. And this is that informal sector that is about to go into Africa to participate, okay, and in the African free trade area that we are talking about. And bear in mind that, as I just stated, the qualities, the challenges that they face are really, through the roof. So now, what to do? We are hoping that the president of Ghana, President Akufo-Addo, that he will not just open the doors and say that it's free trade time in Africa, everybody participate. We are hoping that our traders, our business people will be offered, the Ministry of, I think, Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration. You understand? We are hoping that they'll be organizing training programs for our business people before they go out there. You see, because I imagine that there will be a certain format so that if you want to participate in the free African trade area, that you have to be registered in a certain way. So these participants from Ghana should be trained formally in several aspects of business operations so that the Ghanaian business person participating in Africa will continue to hold high the flag of Ghana and in our activities prove that we remain the black stars of Africa. I'm saying this because Ghana has a unique pedigree across Africa. Of the 54 African countries, we are the ones most of them look up to. So I'm hoping that President Akufo-Addo will just not sit down and let the Ghanaian people, as I described, with the low incomes, etc., the challenges facing them, the low education. Let me just reiterate that fact again. Low educational attainment. Our people need to be sort of trained in some fashion. Some form of workshop should be given to our people at regular periods so that they can remain on top, so that they can have the advantage, the cutting edge as we compete with other African countries. When a Ghanaian business person or trader takes, let's say, for instance, I know lots of young boys that manufacture leather slippers. If they should take some of those leather slippers to the Darfur region, or let's say they want to take it to, say, Central African Republic, they should be on the cutting edge compared to the other African competitors. You understand? We are hoping that the Registrar General's Department would, facilitate registration of businesses and, give them some advice and training, etc., to make our, business people highly competitive. You understand? Kwame, what I'm saying here is that this African free trade area is a unique opportunity, and any of the African leaders that remains poised on this issue is going to have a pleasant surprise by way of foreign exchange receipts accruing to the exchequers. You understand? Accruing to our national kitty. So it is a very, very, very critical issue. I'm very, very happy that President Akufo-Addo stood up and made sure that the headquarters of the African Free Trade Area is in Ghana. Indeed, if you look at President Akufo-Addo and his actions, you cannot help that but really point out the fact that President Akufo-Addo, he's a secret CPP member or incrumenist. Because when you look at the way he jumped on the free SHS and the way it has helped him, if it wasn't because of free SHS that the president essentially drenched himself in, he would have lost the election. And now he's doing good by the African free trade area business. You see, if President Akufo-Addo continues to do these things, then President Kwame Nkrumah and other CPP people will be liking him a lot. So we encourage him to not simply just push the Ghanaian traders into Africa. But we should take the opportunity and fortify them with certain business, business training and etc. So that they will have the cutting edge. So that Kwame, I'm landing. So that as we enter Africa, Ghanaian traders, they will be poised. They will be well positioned, to take the lead, as we often do in Africa. And President Akufo-Addo, he must look sharp so that in future, when he is retired and he goes back to Nima, we'll be saying nice things about him. Thank you, Kwame.
Well, today happens to be the birthday of one of our Day One viewers, a special brother, a special friend. His name is Sami Boache in Asamankesi. Sami Boache started with us 5 years ago when we started Pan-African Television, and he's been very committed and true to the station. Sami Boache, thank you very much for your support, and happy birthday to you, Sami Boache, inside Asamankesi. Ambassador Sampiale has sent a very lengthy message, and I'm going to read that. He says it's a shame that after the UN's failure to stop the massive looting of Congo's women and rich natural resources, they have decided to withdraw their voting right. The United Nations is becoming an annual international token shop and always against the interests of Africans. They have supervised the destruction of the economies of these countries by wars and civil strifes sponsored by Western countries. The UN has allowed the World Bank and IMF and other Bretton Woods institutions to destroy the economies of these African countries by their bogus economic packages that continue to financially enslave these countries. It's time African leaders stopped being puppets and looked inwards. Instead of running over themselves to spend their money attending UN meetings and other meetings in the West, they should work towards the unification of Africa. For how long are we going to be this naive and continue fighting against African unity? Nkrumah never dies. Ambassador Sampiale sent us this message this morning. Thank you very much, Ambassador, for your message. Now, let me read a few messages on Facebook as well, on our Pan-African TV page on Facebook. People are watching us from Monrovia. Thank you. Efo Kelly simply says, #UN. Abdul Gafaru Saibu says, my name is Abdul. I'm watching you from Tamale. Thank you, Abdul. Philantutu says, so what's the difference between that and the killing going on in your country? All right. Charles Thompson says, the truth of the matter is African leaders are docile and absolutely clueless and useless. Africa first. Haruna Isifurona says, are you are here listening to them? Okay. Talk about iron rods price. Okay. Akufo-Addo is the most benevolent president ever. Africa free trade in Africa has been made possible not by Akufo-Addo and Kufuor. My brother, stop wasting our ears trying to steal our policies. Mabuza says happy birthday to Sami Boache in Asamankese. All right. John Kweku Sabi says he's watching us live from Denmark. Young Chorus says he's watching us from Ho. Nana Afra Entry says, good morning, KOD. Thanks for your wonderful show. Watching you from, how do you pronounce this? Reykjavik, Iceland.
In Iceland?
Iceland, yeah.
That's, wow.
Yeah.
It's a great country. They got good leadership.
Yeah. So he's watching us from Iceland.
The Prime Minister is a lady.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Ghana failed to get a woman vice president, but let's see. Nature is calling for African unity. It is time. I agree with you 100%. If you listen to the speech delivered by Sajifo in 1963, what a powerful speech it was. And he said that even if we are not going to be united as different countries coming together, we could at least start something. You understand? Mm-hmm. Let's have one currency. Let's have one central bank. Let's have one military, force, and then we'll be able to take on the world. And then somehow we threw that to the dogs, and that didn't happen. The continuous balkanization of Africa is the root cause of all the challenges that we are confronted with at this material moment. The fact that people in Togo see themselves as people living in Togo, they are from Togo. The fact that Ghanaians see themselves as Ghanaians, the fact that people in South Africa see themselves as people from South Africa is a problem. It's a challenge that we are facing, and until we do something about it quickly, you know. And you know, it's all of these is a creation of the Berlin Conference.
Yep.
You know, but the Berlin Conference created all of these mess for us, and we're still somehow.
But Kwame, I keep on asking. You see, what I ask myself is, why didn't our ancestors try and go and colonize, say, London? What was stopping them? During that era, there was no United Nations, there were no laws against that. The sea was there. We have a beach at Choco. And the people were staying at Choco. And it never occurred to them that they could go and colonize London, arrest the Queen and Prince Charles, and put them in the London of Tower.
Because we could not make ships.
But that's because we did not have the vision to go and colonize London.
No. It's just we were not having ships which could go that far. But remember that in most of these expeditions, the Europeans, in some circumstances, it was aborted because the ship or whatever they were using was not adequate. There were even instances where they all died at sea.
But Doc, they kept on
never came back
until they got to
exactly. And this is what we could not do.
Precisely my point. You see, for instance, the Americans have been to the moon. It used to be a novelty, but China has done it because they were determined.
They had learned how to manufacture guns.
Exactly.
We were using bow and arrows.
Because we're in our comfort zone. So what I'm saying is that Ghanaians, in this era...
Has Africa ever woken up from its stupor?
Well, Kwame, I think so. There was a time when Africans were colonizing parts of lower Europe. You understand? You take a look at Hannibal. Hannibal had that mindset that he would go and colonize Rome. You see, from Africa. So Kwame, all I'm saying is that if we Africans, especially the youth, we should have the mindset that we want to go and colonize London.
It depends.
It's a mindset.
No, but at this moment, the mindset is useless. Because the point is also that it depends on the focus of the youth. What are we interested in at this material moment? I mean, of course, if you've been following things as it happens, for instance, on social media, what are the youth interested in now? They're not interested in your politics.
I hear you, but
they're interested in fashion.
Yes,
they're interested in quick lifestyle. So the commitment to break the chains of mental slavery, to break the chains of neocolonialism, right? It's not there.
Yeah, but
it requires some deliberate intervention by the young people of Africa.
Yeah, Kwame, you see what I'm saying? When I say that we should have the mindset to go and colonize London, it's not to say we are going to colonize London.
Somebody is asking you, did you say colonize London?
Yes, UK. Kwame, if our ancestors had done that, you, Kwame, would probably be the Governor General of the Greater London area.
No, I don't want to be
operating from Buckingham Palace.
I like my Africa.
Can you imagine?
No, I like my Africa.
So I feel you, but you see what I'm saying here is that the African should have the mindset that we want to go to the moon. We want to go to Mars. It's the mindset alone. And one of us, God will bless him and he will emerge. Like Elon Musk has emerged from South Africa. But if we don't have this mindset, and that's why all the time we wait and people come and discover us and then do with us as they please.
I get you. I feel your pain. But the point is that
we should have that orientation.
We must have, no, but the orientation must be, you know, these things must be imbibed into the young people by the
curricula.
Beyond that, also by this, you know, outgoing generation. By the outgoing generation, right?
Yes.
But what are the outgoing generation? What are they also involved in?
That's the President Akufo-Addo and Co. I mean, they are the outgoing generation. No, let me be frank.
But I'm telling you that the outgoing generation.
Yes.
What are they interested in? What are they involved in? Well, are they interested in leaving behind that which can propel the younger generation to take up the mantle of breaking away from the chains of for instance, you know, neocolonialism and mental slavery and things like that, right? And it's been like that. So it's either that, you know the Machiavellian tactics, right? Create a scenario where everything is looked at from a partisan political perspective, okay, and take advantage of that. Get the people to fight, right? Divided they are. Once they are divided, they cannot be uniform in their thinking. So then we take advantage of that, and then steal from them. And that is a tragedy. That's always been a trajectory. How do we move away from that? We move away from that when there's a deliberate, conscious attempt, spearheaded by this generation, to ensure that whatever it is that is wrong with the system is addressed.
Okay, Kwame, I'll just say this briefly. You see, me, right now, Sylvester, little Sylvester, sitting here, I really do not know the vision of President Akufo-Addo. I mean, he talks about free SHS, but I really don't get it. But I'll tell you this. This is President Kwame Nkrumah speaking, and I'll just say this. Please allow me. President Kwame Nkrumah, this is in 1964 at OAU.
Yes,
64. He says, this is the vision of Kwame Nkrumah. He says, it is within the possibility of science and technology to make even the Sahara bloom into a vast field with verdant vegetation for agriculture and industrial developments. We shall harness radio, television, giant printing presses to lift our people from the dark recesses of illiteracy. This is the age in which science has transcended the limits of a physical world and technology has invaded the silences of nature. Time and space have been reduced to unimportant abstractions. Giant machines make roads, clear forests, dig dams, lay out aerodromes. Monster trucks and planes distribute goods. Huge laboratories manufacture drugs and complicated geological surveys are made, etc. All at incredible speed. The world is no more moving through bush paths or on camels and donkeys. We cannot afford to place our development, our prosperity, our security to the gate of camels and donkeys. This is because we have emerged in an age of science and technology where poverty, ignorance and diseases are no longer the masters but the retreating foes of mankind. This is the vision of the leader of the CPP. That is why we follow President Kwame Nkrumah. What is the vision of President Akufo-Addo? Can we articulate it in 2 paragraphs like this? Thank you.
I agree with you. And look, I want to encourage everybody, Dr. Now I'll come to you very shortly, but I want to encourage everybody to go and download Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's speech, okay, in 1963. It's you know, a nerve-wracking speech that sends a lot of chills down your spine. It makes you feel like everything is possible on the continent of Africa.
Exactly.
If only we put our minds to it.
Yes. And we have the right leadership.
I'll just read a little bit of it. Because once we are looking at African continental free trade area, I believe it finds expression in the general thinking of Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah.
Precisely.
When he spoke in Addis Ababa, right? He says, let me just read a little bit from the top.
Sure.
I am happy to be here in Addis Ababa on this historic occasion. I bring with me the hopes and fraternal greetings of the government and the people of Ghana. Our objective is African Union now. There is no time to waste. We must unite now or perish. I am confident that by our concerted effort and determination, we shall lay here the foundations for a continental union of African states. A whole continent has imposed a mandate upon us to lay foundation of our union at this conference. It is our responsibility to execute this mandate by creating here and now the formula upon which the requisite superstructure may be created.
Amen.
On this continent, it has not taken us long to discover that the struggle against colonialism does not end with the attainment of national independence. Independence is only the prelude to a new and more involved struggle for the right to conduct our own economic and social affairs, to construct our society according to our aspirations, unhampered by crushing and humiliating neo-colonialist controls and interference. From the start, we have been threatened with frustration where rapid change is imperative, and with instability where sustained effort and ordered rule are indispensable. No sporadic act nor pious resolution can resolve our present problems. Nothing will be of avail except the united act of a united Africa. It continues to say, we have already reached the stage where we must unite or sink into the condition which has made Latin America the unwilling and distressed prey of imperialism. After 1.5 centuries of political independence, as a continent, we have emerged into independence in a different age, with imperialism grown stronger, more ruthless and experienced, and more dangerous in its international associations. Our economic advancement demands the end of colonialist and neo-colonialist domination of Africa. But just as we understood that the shaping of our national destinies required of each of us, our political independence and bent all our strength to this attainment. So we must recognize that our economic independence resides in our African Union and requires the same concentration upon the political achievement. Look, it's a very brilliant, beautifully articulated, speech in 1963. You need to read it, and the foundations upon which he thought that Africa could unite, and for what purpose our unification could achieve. And look, you read the Camels and Donkeys No More.
Yes.
He says it is within the possibility of science and technology to make even the Sahara bloom into a vast field with verdant vegetation for agricultural and industrial development.
Amen.
We shall harness the radio, television, giant printing presses to lift our people from the dark recesses of illiteracy. A decade ago, these would have been visionary words, the fantasies of an ideal dreamer. But this is the age in which science has transcended the limits of the material world and technology has invaded the silences of nature. What a beautiful speech. Dr. Nawande, are you happy? I can see you smiling, beneath the mask. You are smiling behind the mask. What a wow.
Yes. Nkrumah's speeches are always something that you'll be happy with, because it's like the dreamers words or something like that.
This is the point I was making. This is what I was actually looking for. Let me read it for you. It finds expression in this after, right? And Nkrumah says that, so the things that I was talking about, he says, unite we must, without necessarily sacrificing our sovereignties. That's what I'm saying, right? Big or small, we can here and now forge a political union based on one, defense, foreign affairs and diplomacy, and a common citizenship and an African currency, an African monetary zone and an African central bank. We must unite in order to achieve the full liberation of our continent. We need a common defense system with African high command to ensure the stability and security of Africa. We have been charged with this sacred task by our own people, and we cannot betray their trust by failing them. We will be mocking the hopes of our people if we show the slightest hesitation or delay in tackling realistically this question of African unity. So, I mean, goodness me. Yeah. And now we are looking at after, but after is just, for instance, when he spoke about, when he talked about free trade and all of that. But there's no high command. There's no African high. I don't know whether AU.
If there was a high command, the Congo situation.
I would have been resolved. I think I'm taking enough of your time. Let me. Please.
Nkrumah with all this, I would say that it's just like a dreamer's words coming out. It's like a visionary, And so you cannot fault Nkrumah for all these lines, write-ups, etc. But what I think he himself knew that there were a lot of problems as regards achieving his aim, and so I see his write-ups being what he wants to see at the end. So the visionary aspect, but the roadmap to achieve it is usually left untackled. When I say the roadmap, how was he usually going? He spoke about African unity, knowing very well that there were some head of states who were not in support of it, and by their nature will never be in support of it. How was he to bring them on board? And how was he to do this without also advancing his own? Nkrumah was ambitious. without advancing his own ambition? Was he going to sacrifice his own ambition to bring all these people on board and leave these so-called reactionary leaders to take over his ideas and try to move them forward? That's what I'm saying. The roadmap to achieving Nkrumah's visions. No, they were not clear. They were not clear. Nkrumah knew that there were blocks, and there were problems as regards the implementation of his visions.
No, I think he stated that. He said that we are not relinquishing our sovereignties. So you can.
No, that was an assurance to those reactionary leaders.
Sure.
Yeah, that was the immediate resistance they had.
Yes.
The Casablanca block and things like that.
Etc.
So they had that initial resistance. To them, but the point also was that the fundamental issues that needed immediate attention was the things that he stated. And all the things that he stated did not mean that all the other countries were going to lose their sovereignty.
If I might add, you see, in the United States, there are 50 United States, but they didn't start with 50. They started with 13. So President Kwame started with Ghana, Guinea, Mali.
Anyway, but the roadmap to achieve all these things were not clear. So let us go on with our free continental trade area. You know, from all the Nkrumah speeches, etc., that you have read, it's clear that the founding fathers of the African Union had that in mind. And we've taken that long, since the 1960s, to move this step forward. And we need to give thumbs up to Professor Atameo's government, who actually requested that Ghana host this the free continental trade area, and indeed earmarked the building that is currently housing the headquarters.
Wow,
yes. Oh yes. It was not that they just no. Akufo-Addo agreed and now implemented it, but it was under Prof. Atameos during the meeting that they agreed that they were going to host it and started building. Akufo-Addo did not build that building. Okay. Yes, he did not build that. Yes, he just came and housed it there. But it was under Atameos that those agreements for Ghana to host it came into being. So let us give due this thing to Prof. Mel's government. The NDC government for agreeing to host the continental body. This African Free Continental Trade Area that was supposed to be established had in mind, the idea of removing tariffs between themselves up to about 90% of the goods that they sell, and to ensure that we had a common market for goods and services. Yes. It is within this context that we're supposed to start it and even get a common customs, such that when goods enter one country, it is said that it has entered the free trade area, like in some EU countries, etc. Indeed, our own was supposed to be that in the long run, we're supposed to enjoy the sum total of the technologies that is in Africa. Because if, for example, you anything that we can test any product with, that is good, let's say in Ghana here, can be adapted for the whole of the African Union. The same thing that which is good in South Africa can be adapted by the whole of the African Union. So in the long run, we're supposed to be technologically more advanced if we formed the common trade area. And we're supposed to ensure that even our Food and Drugs Authority, etc., that were regulating some of these entries into the free trade area will be harmonized, and we will have goods entering under the same conditions, irrespective of which part of the area that it is entering from. So in the long run, this free trade area was supposed to make things cheaper, flexible, and cheaper for African countries to access the markets of their neighboring countries.
Yeah.
Yes. And it did not start with all the African countries agreeing. I think at the initial stages, out of the 55 countries, only 44 agreed. And Nigeria was initially a big problem because the market of Nigeria was about a fifth of that of the whole of Africa. And so we thought that, yes, their absence would be felt. I think that there's a lot of progress being made in that direction, and they will soon sign the charter. I don't know whether they've not signed, but at the initial stages, they stayed away. Having said all this, we should understand that that is our wish, but there are problems. Problem because our communication systems, for example, are not good between African countries. You can make a call from Ghana to Niger and it has to pass through probably France or some other country before you get to the country. Not only is communication in terms of mobile phones, etc., but even transport. There are some African countries, if you are going today, you have to do a transit.
Yeah.
In Europe. And so you see that the fares and all those things are big. And you'll be wondering, I'm going from Africa to Africa and I'm paying that much money. Meanwhile, if I'm going to London...
Internal flights are very expensive.
Yes.
Within Africa.
Yes.
Very expensive.
Yes.
There's an opportunity for Ghana to
And
do that.
you see, and so you wonder whether with all this type of communications, whether we can really make a headway. And let us not forget, let us come down to F. The practical aspect of even moving goods, services, people in the African continent. Let's say that the cheapest were being by land. Look at the way the various customs, the various security agencies, etc. will harass you. Don't even forget that recently Nigeria closed its borders to all these neighboring countries. And we're talking of a free African Union or a free African trade area. And its impact. Perishable goods got spoiled. There were a lot of problems, and they wouldn't make a move to help solve the problem. The corruption at our borders. We are talking of a situation where we want price of goods and services to be cheaper. But if we are supposed to move goods and services through all these borders, from Ghana to Togo, and you get there and all these security agencies are taking money left and right, foreign force with you, left and right. When your papers are right, you still have to pay something. And you're supposed to move goods from Ghana here to, let's say, Egypt. What about our undeveloped railway system? That is supposed to have been the engine for the transportation of what? Goods. That is the cheapest way to transport goods, using the rail system. How are we going to get all these things in place? I'm not lamenting this to say that we shouldn't start. But I'm saying all these things because we need to be serious once again. Or else we'll have a situation where we'll start and then we'll abandon it. Remember the African High Command, when countries were supposed to provide troops to come together and fight whenever necessary, or to be sent to neighboring countries whenever necessary. The idea was good. There was a time that various countries were able to put together forces to help neighboring countries. But there were also instances where an attempt by neighboring countries to overthrow legitimate governments that were in some other countries. And so that whole idea was shelved, if not abandoned. So this is the same way that we are forming this thing, and if we don't put together the good laws that will govern all the movement of goods and services, laws that will ensure that yes, investments are protected, because in the long run, look, we are after foreign investments as well, and the foreign investments would have come in because they know they have a bigger market. So, for example, Toyota might like to establish in Ghana here, its plant, etc., for the whole of Africa market, which now possibly will be approaching the 1 billion, or 1.2 billion now.
Yes,
you see, very, very big market. But if they know that we don't have good laws, after they've established the plant here, they want to sell in Cote d'Ivoire, there are going to be impediments. They are supposed to pay money, bribe. The movement of the goods itself is going to be obstructed. Then in the long run, this type of gains that we expect to have from investors will not take place.
Yeah, you know what has worked. What has worked for EU. Okay, beyond everything, they have some foundational blocks that they wanted to use as the basis to develop the whole community, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that, in fact, the main thing that they wanted to do was to ensure free trade. By free trade, meaning that they didn't want to have any
customs impediment.
Absolutely. So no customs. They have a name for it. So either qualitative restrictions, or or restrictions having a similar effect as qualitative restrictions, so that people can easily move their products from, let's say, Germany to France with ease, no restrictions whatsoever, not by way of internal taxes, not by way of qualitative restrictions, so that maybe France can say that yes, you can import your product, but we are giving you a cap. You can only import, let's say, 100 bottles of beer.
Okay.
That does not exist at all. Now, what they used to ensure that that system functioned properly was the courts. So they made sure that their laws functioned properly. I don't know how we're going to be able to do that in Africa, because this is precisely what we are seeking to do.
Yeah.
Now, if the justice system is not as robust as it should be, then we are going to have challenges. Then
exactly.
people, then they can be internal, because their argument was that the EU, the argument was that yes, every country is supposed to have their own internal laws, but their internal laws must not operate such that it offends the bigger law, which is the EU law itself.
Yeah, contradicts.
So whatever it is that you do, you must make sure that your laws are in conformity with the EU laws. And if it's not in conformity, there are regulations, there are directives, there are treaties that you've signed on to that will ensure that your laws operate such that people from either the host country or another country can freely trade amongst themselves. I don't know how this whole African Continental Free Trade Agreement area is going to be like. But if we want to ensure its success, we must make sure that there are some fundamental issues, or basic issues that are addressed before its full implementation. What are the policies behind it? What are the laws governing it? Who can transport what? What can we import in? What can we not import in? All of those things must be looked at, right? Yeah. And for instance, for small businesses, like Soprano stated, that if you look at the African economies, for instance in Ghana, when we talk about SMEs, it's a Makola woman.
Yeah.
You know, it's a Makola woman who sells tomatoes in Makola on the daily, and then is able to earn an income and is able to use that to support the family, etc. How do we ensure that if we are allowing a free trade area, the Makola woman or the Bublish woman will not suffer on the basis of the free trade area created, such that somebody in Nigeria can easily also come to Ghana and come and trade freely and go back?
Yeah.
So what can we do so that we don't break the backbone, the market backbone of
the local economy?
That's what I'm going to say, the local economy.
Yeah.
You know, Kwame, if I may, you see, please, Doc, you see, there is a template in place from the United EU and even USA as in how we can integrate. You know, there's a template in place. Just by the way, I was reading up on the... And I'm saying this, sorry, because, sorry, the of respect to you. Sure. You call that, Guta had a problem with Nigerian settlers. Precisely. The traders in Atseka. Absolutely. And that, if we implement the after us is implemented, I'm sure that will be affected. So that even if you have your domestic laws, right, your domestic laws will not necessarily apply if, for instance, somebody from Nigeria wants to come and settle and establish a business in Ghana.
Yeah, depend upon
absolutely
the scale of the business.
That's what I'm saying. That because the problem we need to look at the law properly. You see what it says. Because if the law says that every body, right, can move, for instance, from Nigeria or can move from Togo and come to Ghana and is able to acquire licenses and establish a business, there shouldn't be any impediments whatsoever. Then we need to. Otherwise, your country will be flooded.
I have faith in our policy makers.
They shouldn't come and take part in the retail business.
Sure. I have faith in our policy makers that they can eventually find a way for it. President Abdoulaye Wade, former president of Senegal, he wrote in an interview that he gave to Time magazine or Newsweek about 6-8 years ago. I read it, and he said that the reason why the ECOWAS was not functioning as we wanted, the free movement of people and this thing, was because of Nigeria. This is not a negative thing.
No, Nigeria had not said
yeah. You see, and then he was also saying, Kwame, that they need to put in the appropriate protocols because, for instance, taking a country like Senegal, this is President Abdoulaye Wade speaking. He says, when you take a country like Senegal, and assuming that the Senegalese economy is booming, and because of the free movement of people, etc., we are advocating. Let's say 10 million Nigerians decide to come to Senegal because the environment is good for business and they come and stay there. Immediately, it changes the entire Senegalese economy. Meanwhile, in Nigeria, they wouldn't even realize 10 million people left town.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You see, so we will do, I think that the policy makers, the balance will find out. And then when I was reading up on the EU Brexit, it turns out that there were, there's a ferry, or I think the underwater, under the British canal, the canal between France and Britain. So people crossed over into France, and drivers were having sandwiches, in their car that they would eat for lunch. But at the border guards at the EU border guards stopped them and took the meat from the sandwich, because if you are no longer a member of the EU, you can't just bring meat into the EU. Absolutely. So the point I'm making here is that when we got independence across Africa, we had the challenges you are describing, with regards to this implementation of the African Free Trade Area. You understand? There were myriad challenges. But as we went along, we have improved. Now, Kwame, I'm also saying that, I have absolute faith that this African Free Trade Area project is going to be a fantastic success. President Akufo-Addo would like to call it a famous success. He likes to say that. You understand? It will be a famous victory for Africa, because I believe that this is going to be so because of democracy. Because of democracy. Kwame, you realize that over the past 30 years or so, or 20-something years that we've been practicing democracy in Ghana, we have made the most progress economically, socially, etc. within that period, compared to the time of the era of the coup d'etats. So let's continue to have faith. There will be challenges, but I need to do this.
Let me just wind up.
Okay, wind up. But let me say
once again. Yes, once again, we are not getting the roadmap and timelines.
Yeah, that's a challenge.
Coming out again. We've established the office, we've got people talking, but what, infrastructure-wise, what are the timelines? Do you have any plan possibly for an African railway system?
Yeah.
And when will it be started and when will it be ended? Okay. Let's just take one item at a time.
Absolutely. One at a time and make sure we achieve that.
You know,
that's a brilliant solution.
Yes, one at a time. And let us all know that we are all committed to this time. If it is 2030 or 2050, when I will not be alive, that will be finished. Let me know that yes, this is the situation and this is how it's going to be and this is how it's going to end. If we don't do that, we are going to do it by some ad hoc measures.
Yeah.
Today, a government comes and says that I'm a member. The next time a government comes and says I'm not a member.
There must be a policy direction. That's precisely. All right. So let me say a special good morning to one fantastic gentleman who is watching us now. He is the NDC chairman for KEEA constituency. Okay, Chairman Egwafo Abrim. Chairman Kweku Wuntumin Take. That's his name. And he's watching us from my hometown, Elmina, this morning. Good morning to you, Chairman. I trust you're doing well. Chairman Kweku Wuntumin Take. Wuntum Take. The one who can Wuntum Take. So good morning to you, sir, and thank you for watching today. Now, Ambassador Sampiale comes back again and says, look, let's stop blaming the Berlin Conference. They created the Berlin Wall, but Germans fought to break it down. Amen. Kwame, tell my dear Kwame Soprano that African colonialization of the West is already happening. Okay. Today, no one can be elected as a president of America without African Americans. Take a look at their financial and medical institutions, including IT, etc. They are all headed by Africans. What we need is our bald-head leaders seeking to utilize the human resources of our diasporan human capital. Okay. The problem we have in Africa, as in Ghana particular today, is the allied forces against Nkrumah that are governing and destroying our long vision of African unity. Nkrumah was 200 years ahead of his time. His contemporaries were only jealous and allowed their emotional jealousy to be manipulated by their so-called colonial masters. I like how you put it. Emotional jealousy to be manipulated.
Like I told you, the first time I listened to him, I'm like, wow, man, we have all this.
Yeah. All right. Let's proceed and look at coronavirus. COVID-19 death toll rises as GMA calls for restrictions on public gatherings. Doc, I foresee a lockdown. You know, now I'm a saint. How do you say? Is it an angel or a saint?
Well, you are reading the tea leaves.
Yeah, I'm reading all the bones on the table, and I can foresee that lockdown will soon happen. Not because I am a spiritualist, not because I possess some special supernatural powers, but because the numbers and the number of people who have died as a result of COVID-19 is overwhelming.
Yes.
Including my own, I don't know how do I say it? Uncle-in-law. Yeah. You know, and it's a crazy spectacle, really.
It's scary.
Dr. Awani, you're a medical doctor. I mean, how do we? I don't know how. Even if I can't, because you can't even give me a solution.
No,
in terms of cure, right? But at least you can advise and admonish government to do the right thing. So, I mean, I think we should lock down and close down schools again.
The situation is such that I believe that government currently is in a dilemma because you can't eat your cake and have it. And this sickness is such that it is not a situation where anybody currently can predict that within a matter of 2, 3, or even 6 months, whether this pandemic will be over or not. Especially the way it is behaving. it will not be over for this strain, but another new strain will come, which will be more what? Infectious or contagious than even the previous one.
Yeah.
And then now we are hearing that the new strains are also much more virulent. In other words, they cause severe sickness than before. So at this stage, if there's anybody who can predict what is going to be our next step, and that things are going to be better, then that person might be a very good prophet. What the situation as we have it now is that the numbers are increasing. The deaths are increasing. And remember that in Ghana, we are not able to capture all the deaths. I called, but my chairman called me, I think yesterday. I spoke with my chairman. That the funerals are getting so many. I said, is it that people have died previously and now they are doing the funerals, or these are new? He said that they are new ones and they are elderly. So practically, there's a lot of elderly people who have died in my constituency.
That's very sad.
You know, and so in principle he was calling that he needed more reinforcement for them to attend funerals. That was the reason why the call came in, you know.
Reinforcements are very needed.
To be able to attend.
Particularly in this times.
You know. And so, and all these people, they die. I don't think that a lot of investigations are done before they are buried. So the situation actually is not good for us. We are approaching 4,000 in terms of active cases and approaching 400 in terms of the number of deaths. And that is within this short period after the Christmas and New Year festivities. So the call by the Ghana Medical Association that we should restrict gatherings is in the right direction. We should make an effort that I think the government has to come back again and look at this aspect of funerals, weddings, etc. I believe that possibly after Ronald's funeral, I believe that we might have a situation of the sort coming, because it's obvious.
Like a lockdown type of...
No, but we should lock down. I don't know.
All this mass gatherings.
The second strain
anything that is related to the mass gatherings will go off. As regards closing schools, we have to look at it. We have to look at it, because if the situation continues like that, but so far we are having a situation where there have not been any bad reports from the schools in terms of deaths, you know, in terms of mass infections from the schools. And that is, and to close down the schools, you see, the situation now is that can there be some form of a normal life? Can we live, because we don't know when this is going, can we live with COVID-19?
That's what the president said. It's become normal.
Can we live with COVID-19? And this requires that whilst we are waiting to take any decision on these things, we should be able to improve infrastructure.
Absolutely.
This is where we are not doing well. Like,
but the president said,
like
88 hospitals, 88 new hospitals.
Yes, let's not even go to this thing. Like in the dormitories, there are 4 people in a room, or sometimes more than that. Can we go and look at it and see whether we can do something about the 4 in a room?
Yeah.
This, I mean, I'm talking of the schools. Yes.
I think right now most of them are practicing a double track system. Legon, for instance, what I do know is that some of them are going to school from now till middle of the month, or middle of the year, sorry. And then the next batch will continue.
We'll go, yes. These are the things that we should be looking at, so that we can have some form of normalcy.
Do a lot of online studies. I don't know why.
The online studies, the infrastructure, not of the universities, but the individuals. There are a lot of individuals now who retire and have to go back to their villages.
Well, that's true.
And I don't know to what extent.
Access.
Yeah, we can improve on it by creating some form of centers. It's possible that every district you create a center where people can come there and use the internet services that is at that center. Yes, and use it in such a way that it is regulated. It is in an organized way where various universities can have their programs run at the center. These are the things that we should be thinking of. And if we are doing some of these things, then we are in the right direction. But if we are sitting down there saying that we are closing down schools because reopen them when? If we are sitting down saying that our the children will have to go home and then learn. Fine, that is good. And learn, that is good. But that means that we should rush and create the infrastructure that can let them go home and be learning, or that can let them be at some areas apart from school and be learning. The virtual learning is taking place in so many places in the world, but they have the infrastructure. Are you going to supply each child with a laptop, for example? If you can do that, then they can learn from the house. Are you going to create a situation where the cost of buying units, the internet units, will come down?
All right.
To have the students. So
time is almost up.
Yes.
So learn from
So I will say that how do we create this normalcy? And of course, we also know that the president promised 88 hospitals within 1 year.
We are waiting on him.
I've not seen any roadmap, action plan. These are the things that I always,
look for.
Look for. To be convinced that yes, we are in the right direction. If, for example, the architectural map, because this 88, you can have one drawings. The drawings will come out first. The cost analysis will also come out, and later on, we will see foundations being made. Then you know that there is work going on. But if you don't see anything,
all right.
But the president will just open up and say that I'm going to build 88 hospitals. That alone is not enough.
Okay.
And so let us look at all these things to ensure that we are not overtaken by COVID once again.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Nawani. Let me now come to you.
Sure. Just briefly, herd immunity. They talk about herd immunity. So if the virus is constantly mutating, then it negates herd immunity. Am I right?
Yeah.
Because it keeps on,
changing.
morphing. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Doc, I appreciate you. Doc, see, when you said the president cannot have his cake and eat it, I really laughed because, at the Flagstaff House, from what I hear, there's a lot of cake and salad going on. So literally, I could just imagine them chilling this morning with the salad and cake. But, Doc, you see, this whole COVID-19 situation, from where I sit, is an extraordinary opportunity for Africa. You understand? It's a big-time opportunity. It is a time for us to create an economy that is unlike the Western economies imposed upon us by the colonial occupation forces that used to colonize, Africa. So it is a pandemic that is wreaking havoc. True, but I see several linings of silver in these dark clouds, Doctor. For instance, I have been an advocate of telecommuting because I have always said that Africa, as Dr. Ambassador P. Yali just said, has this vast pool of human resources scattered around the world, manning critical institutions in the West, East, North, and South. You understand? However, we're not able to harness them to service Africa in a fashion that we want, or to the degree that we want. This pandemic has proven. It used to be that people were saying, oh, telecommuting is not appropriate. Now it is the norm. It is a great opportunity for Ghana and Africa to, by way of telecommuting, harness our resources in the diaspora, not only to man several sectors of the economy, but primarily, especially under this circumstance, to produce vaccines. Doc, last couple of weeks, I think you were saying that the infrastructure does not exist. It's not easy like that. I agree with you, Doctor, but I'm sure you'll agree with me that the manpower exists. The indigenous African people exist. So what I'm saying is that our leadership should find a way to hire the laboratories where this manpower can go and do the job. We don't need to own the labs, etc. And this is just a suggestion. That is one, Doc. Now, the telecommuting is also bringing an extraordinary opportunity. Of course, as you said, Doctor, there are challenges with providing laptops and the infrastructure, the communication infrastructure that will facilitate e-learning. And just by the way, when we talk about this lack of telecommunication equipment, I recall, is it Agambila or Ayambila, Mr. RLG?
Agambiri.
Yes, can you imagine what RLG, Doctor, maybe in future I'll ask you how come it fizzled out? We had so much hope in RLG and then it just sort of evaporated. But if we do have these, it is worth it for the president of Ghana. You see, Doctor, if Parliament can pay each parliamentarian 600,000 cedis ex gratia, then I think that the Parliament should find the money to give every school child in Ghana a laptop or a tablet so that we can facilitate e-learning. Because, I mean, parliamentarians are already very rich people and they still want 600,000. So we want them to have the 600,000. But can their children have computers and tablets? You see, so that we all move together in tandem. So I see an opportunity to create a new economy for Africa. You see, now, Doctor, I also see that returning back to normal, as you were saying, is going to be difficult. The question is, what is normal again in these times? The normal is that we are living with a virus that is constantly mutating. And that is why I'm pushing strongly for the president to set up a commission to rally the diasporan resources of Africa, okay, so that they can find a way, if necessary, if they have to hire a laboratory or pay for a laboratory so they can go and do. Because, Doctor, the virus is mutating. Now, today, as we speak, the first manifestation of the virus, we don't have the vaccine for it. We are buying it. It's very, very expensive. And then just when we got it, or when we're about to get it, the virus has mutated. So that means now we have to either abandon the first purchase or have a dual track medication system. Who is to say that next 3 months the virus is not going to mutate again? So that we have a third strain and so on. Are we going to be always giving our money to some white people in America and Europe to be making vaccines? What is stopping us from making a vaccine? And Doc, as a parliamentarian, I'd like to ask you, can the president not commandeer some of these vaccines or the facilities so that because this is a national emergency. So we are hoping that the president will exercise the republic's right of way wherever possible so that we can, handle this situation. But personally, I'm seeing that, we are going to be having to be living with this virus. And so Ghanaians, we have to get with the program. We have to be masking up. This habit of washing hands, it has to be going on. I'm really impressed with the youth of Ghana, the young people, the children. In my area, the children see me and they say, Papa, have you washed your hand? Here's some sanitizer. I'm liking that. Because not only does it mitigate the spread of the virus, but it also mitigates against the transmission of cholera viruses and all meningitis and all kinds of other bad viruses that we are living with. So in a nutshell, I'm just hoping that the president of Ghana today and the ruling party would understand that this virus is an opportunity for us to begin to do new things. I want to believe that President Kwame, President Akufo-Addo continues and desires to follow in the footsteps of President Kwame Nkrumah. Doc, often, me, as a political person, whenever I'm faced with a political question and challenge, the question I ask myself is, what would President Kwame Nkrumah have done?
All right.
Thank you.
You're done?
Kwame, I think that after mentioning the name of President Kwame Nkrumah and what he would have done, I don't need to talk anymore. If President Akufo-Addo pays attention to President Kwame Nkrumah, he would also do well. For instance, last time I went to Elmina, I don't know if I've told you that I'm involved in a beachfront cleaning activity in Elmina. And earlier you talked about Chairman Untimitake. I know him, I've heard about him, I've not met him personally, but I've heard about him in the Elmina area. And the work that he continues to do on the beach to prevent open defecation. Chairman Untimitake at Elmina, the KEEA area, the commander. I've heard about him because we have been pushing very hard to stop open defecation, because the place that I'm talking about is near Dr. Indum's Coconut Grove. Hotel, yeah. But you see, Dr. Indum's Coconut Grove, he has people there that are protecting the beach so that there's no open defecation. But when you go left, he didn't get the people to reach there. And when you go right, Dr. Indum didn't get the people to reach there. But in front of the Indum property is very nice, but left of it is toilet, then right of it is toilet. So, I'm talking about open defecation. Okay. So, Chairman Untimitake and his boys have been cleaning the beach. They've been making activities there, and I want to encourage Chairman Untimitake and the youth in Elmina that do not underestimate your beach, Elmina youth. It is a massive $1 million resource. Don't play games with it. Stop open defecating on the beach and support the efforts of Chairman Untimitake, who is a patriot. Thank you very much.
Well, I'm sure Chairman Untimitake will be smiling wherever he is. Dr. Nwande, thank you very much. And since your chairman also called you asking for reinforcement. Anyway, and Soprano, my time is up.
Yeah, but the nurses are dying.
The nurses are dying. We'll touch on that.
The nurses are dying.
Another issue that we need to touch on is the open defecation and things like that. We'll talk about that when next we meet. But thank you very much for watching today's edition of Good Morning Africa. My name is Kwame Owusu, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.